So we are, how many guys can standing right here, please? So we are so glad to have you here today. You don't have
Thank you.
any slides or anything that we need to put up, is that right?
Are you guys good with those slides? I mean,
Yes.
Tammy is.
Good, right?
So actually,
I had some nice
we need to
little
keep
fun
this
slides
open,
for
so
you,
y'all can
but
sit in the middle.
I'd
Yeah,
rather just
that'll work. Yeah.
You can try.
No, you're good. You're good.
Thanks
Well, there's a
for-
cord, so I just go back that way.
I have a few more coming in.
So you guys finished class, so you finished class when, like 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, barely.
Barely?
11:15.
Okay, and then you're here. Okay. So tell me, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors? MBA? All of them. So who's a freshman? I'm just trying to get a gauge of what's going on.
Age.
Age? No, if it's like where you are in your
Oh.
educational path.
So no freshmen in the room?
Sophomores? Right on. Juniors? Awesome. That's a sweet spot. Seniors? Yeah, ABA? So, whoa. Oh, wait, let me raise my hand too. So much that my professor said when I was at TU really doesn't come, you don't figure it out till years later. You'll be like, have this aha moment and be like, they were right.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing, especially when you get into an MBA program. You're like, oh, now I know what they were talking about. Like, this all makes sense. My brain couldn't take it at that point because I was not the best. Well, I was a good college student, but I was, doing keg stands and having lots of fun when I was at TU. So I don't know much has changed, but I'm not doing keg stands anymore. So we'll call that. But I still like to have a lot of fun. So I'm kind of an open book. You can ask me whatever you want. You can stop me. You don't need to, wait till I'm done talking or something like that. You can interrupt me if you have any questions. If there's anything you want to know, I know a lot about this subject, which is personal branding. Does everyone know what that is? Maybe start with that.
Start with that.
Start with personal branding. Let's see. Personal branding. And maybe I can tell my story. So I went to TU 99. I was class of 99. I was a DG. Did a lot of partying on campus. Got a marketing degree, and at the time it was go into marketing, get a marketing job, or go into sales. And there wasn't that many marketing jobs when I graduated, so I went into sales. Really good at sales, worked my way up the corporate ladder. Was getting thrown out of buildings, all kinds of things are happening. But then I found myself sitting on this bench in front of an airport in Philadelphia. And I feel like my story kind of starts there because I was crying to my husband and I'm I'm just not happy. I don't like what I'm doing. And I saw a guy with a walker, he was walking by, I think he had one leg or something like that. And I was like, why am I ungrateful of where I am? Right? But at the time, I was a VP for the Home Depot. I was one of the youngest VPs they'd ever had. I was 29 years old. I had a corporate, I had a territory of the East Coast, and I was making 285 business trips a year.
Wow.
Wasn't happy with what I was doing. So, if you remember way back when the recession hit, we went through a recession, and I had an opportunity to take what they call the golden parachute at the time. So I could take a year to just kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And up until then, when I was in college and everything, I just was so forward focused in getting where I needed to go, which I didn't even know where that was. I was just thinking okay, I need to do this. I need to have the title. I need to have all this stuff. And then I ended up where I was wait, I don't know what I want to do now. So my husband's what do you like doing? Tell me what parts of the job you like doing. And I said, I really like training new salespeople. And he's well, maybe you should be a teacher. And I was maybe I should. And randomly a psychic told me this. I don't believe in psychics, but I was oh, this is a sign. I need to be a teacher. So I went back to school and got my MBA, and I became a TA for a college in Chicago. I was living in Chicago at the time. And I got my first class after about a year, and I was teaching like general business classes. So marketing, consumer behavior. If you're a business major, like all those classes that you pay for your taking, I was teaching all those classes. And I realized like there's something, this social media thing. Like, you know, people are spending a ton of time on Facebook. That's when Facebook was really like going strong. And I said, well, you know, there's something to it. I want to know more about it. And me, you know, being so college focused, I was looking for programs, so social media programs. There was no programs available. So I was like, okay. And a colleague of mine was like, you know what? Do applied research. Just start your own social media followers. Start your own social media. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll do that, whatever. So I started a Facebook page called I Love Mom Bunnies, because I was a new mom. So I was running around parking lots and playgrounds and stuff, like showing mom's jokes. I was writing a lot of jokes. I was a meme. You know, like back when memes were everything. I was like, that was my jam, was memes. And it just really took off. I was getting like 1,000 likes a day at certain points. People liked the jokes. And my following was like, hey, more you, show more of you. And at the time I was using all of this because I started teaching social media marketing. And the college that I was with said, hey, can you teach a class called personal branding? I was like, what's personal branding? But I can teach it. Yeah, no problem. I can teach anything, you know? So I was doing that. And as I went through the coursework, I told my students, like, hey, I'm going to go through this with you because I'm not branded as well. My brand is all over the place also. And most people's brands are all over the place. So it's just, you're in a unique situation if you're a college student that you have time to figure it out. Everyone else in the professional working world is still trying to figure it out. And they're working at the same time. So, I, at the time, was shooting sketch comedy at night because I was approached by a production house that said, hey, let's do sketch comedy videos. So I became a YouTuber and I was making sketch comedy videos. And I'll never forget, I had a student walk up to me one day and he was like, hey, I think that you should show one of your videos. I found it on YouTube. And I was like, what are you talking about? I think I was gearing up my PowerPoint presentation. I was really stodgy at the time. I was, you know, like my alter ego was, I was professor by day, and then I was, you know, social media, running around doing jokes at night. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it if you pay attention. I don't know, I had some stipulations, and I was like, I'll show you my trailer. And I showed them my trailer, and I'll never forget because they were all paying attention. I was like, oh, so if I'm myself, like, you guys pay attention, this is great. So it made life so much easier for me to incorporate my brand all together and realize that being your authentic self is really what it takes. Like, whatever you are, whoever you are, and everybody is uniquely qualified to do something. Whatever that is, harness that, and that's personal branding. So I do my learning with laughter, and I crack a lot of jokes in the classroom. I would say, like, there's no colder audience than like a classroom full of Gen Z millennials. It's pretty cold. They don't laugh, they just don't get their cell phones out, you know, it's one of those things. So that's kind of like the high point of what personal branding is all about. And I say juniors is a sweet spot for it because it takes a little bit of time to figure out what your brand is, what you want to be known for. And it can always change. It can always move in different directions. So personal branding, where to start? Because this is like a lunch and learn, right? You're supposed to be learning some things. Thank you.
Just get that table out of the way too.
I like to write on the board. I don't have legible handwriting, but it makes me feel good. Okay, you always ask me where to start. So you've already been branded some way or other. Okay, it's already out there. So if you pass by people on the street, people that you're sitting in class with, whoever it is, they know you for something. What is that? I always say, I tweet, therefore I brand. Like anything you put out there online, you are branding yourself. So think of it like I'm a big sports head. Offense, playing offense. So you want to play offense with your social media, okay? You never want to play defense, which defense is, oh, there's something out there that's not so great about me. If they find out about it, I was, whatever. What am I going to say? That's defense. Playing offense is that you're putting out specific information about yourself. So when people go Google you, because they're going to, what do they find? So if you can control the narrative, which is your brand. Okay, so where do you start if you have no idea where to start with personal branding? Is that you've already been branded somehow or other. So I always say start with surveys. So go and ask 10 people in your life, a mix of people, friends, people you've worked with, a co-worker. I try not to say relatives because it's skewed, right? Your relatives always have a skewed vision of you. But friends and co-workers and managers. And ask them, what do you think I do all day? If you had me teach you something, what would it be? Okay, what's my superpower? You can ask, like, if I was a car, what kind of car would I be? You gotta lead them in the direction. Because what personal branding is all about is thinking of yourself separate from, like, your human, like your organs and stuff like that. It's like a separate thing. Like looking at yourself like you're a company. Okay? So start with that. And I would say like 10 people, if you can. And I generally say like, oh, I have a manager, did I spell it right? Okay. I say, I have a class assignment. Can you fill this out? Need it by, and give them a deadline because people will flake on you, right? So ideally you get, 4 or 5 back and it gives you some information. It's usually pretty eye-opening. So when I did this, people said, oh, you know a lot about social media. I was like, well, that's lame, right? You're really smart. I was like, there's a lot of smart people, but that's it. That's all that came back. I was like, oh, you're funny. I was like, but I don't like any of that. I don't like what you're saying about me right now. So then you can figure out how you've already been branded, and then you can control the narrative. So start with figuring out what's already out there. And you may be surprised. Somebody may say, I would really love you to give me a training on self-confidence. And you're like, I'm the least self-confident person you know. And then you think it changes your lens of how you consider yourself and how you carry yourself. So, surveys. And your brand, so once you get this feedback, so just getting that feedback, I'm going to turn this over to have you guys ask me a lot of questions, but I'm going to run down something that is like the foundation, I feel like, of personal branding. Like what is like the big meat and potatoes. And that's the elevator pitch, which, a lot of people don't like the wording elevator pitch, right? Do you guys know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an old business term, right? It's 60 seconds, ideally. So in college, generally people lead into it with, how's school going? Do you guys see this? Is that, yeah? Everybody can see it? Okay. I feel like it's very faint. How's school going, or what do you do? So once you break this down, I feel like you are on the right track. You do the surveys, and elevator pitch, you're on the right track. You're moving in the right direction. Okay, so the elevator pitch can overshadow everything that you do. So it's something that you would put out there online, as well as something that you would say if somebody was having conversation with you and you meet someone. Because most interviews don't happen where it's like, meet me at 3 o'clock so you have time to like prepare and wear a suit and everything. Most of the interviews that I had happened spur of the moment. I was walking down the street and I bumped into somebody and they're like, oh, what are you up to these days? Okay, oh, why don't I give you my card? Why don't you reach out to me? So that is how I got most of the jobs that I have. So you have to be ready at all times. I just feel like you gotta be prepared. So how's school going? People probably ask you this all the time, especially around holidays, right? You bump into somebody you haven't seen in a while. Oh, how's school going? And they just want you to start talking about yourself, right? They want to find some common ground. And most people lead with their position. So they'll say, oh, I'm the VP of sales of corporate accounts, or I'm this or that or whatever. They lead with their job. When they say, what do you do? They don't really want to know what you do. Okay, this is very misleading, this question. Right, so some people say, if somebody says, oh, I'm the VP of sales for this company, I'm always like, do you like your job? That's usually my first question, because if that's the first thing you tell me, then you must love your job and want to be in it for the rest of your life, right? So how's school going? You go, it's good. It's like, okay, well, missed opportunity, right? You just think about that. Or what's your major? And you're like, marketing. Okay, and it's like crickets, like they have nothing, they got nothing, right? So this part, or this question is really big, because you can say, what do you do, or what do you want to do? Okay, there's no like police that's gonna come out and be like, that's not what you're doing, you know, like we're gonna bust you and take you to elevator pitch jail or whatever. So, what to do? So I was telling people I was a comedian way before I was considered a comedian. Okay, so people will be like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a comedian. I'm a professor. So I led with that right away. Okay, so so this is the components. And I'm gonna put comedian, professor here so you have an idea. So what do you do, and then what do you want to do, which I always say go with what do you want to do. So I want to be a music producer, I want to be a scientist, whatever you want to do, you can tell them that. Okay, so that's the first part. Second part is context and value. Okay, so why should they care? Think of it like that. I think I'm hard on markers, so I burned through them quickly. Why should they care that you made this claim? And look at it like this. You're going to start with a claim. Why should they care? So I'm a comedian, I'm a professor, and they should care because comedy affects our lives, right? Everybody loves comedy, and if you laugh or you hear optimistic humor, you're more collaborative and flexible with your thinking. Okay? So if I explained why they should care that I'm a comedian, that I've made this claim. Alright, so then the third part is, I'm going to say metrics or examples. So metrics, any numbers you can attach to it. I have a social media following of 115,000 people. Okay? Or I have been a comedian since I was 5 years old. Let me tell you an example of something funny I said in my living room to my parents. So I'm giving them examples and I'm giving them some type of number to attach to it. Okay, so the thing about this needs to be casual conversation. So I have students, I'll say, what do you do? And they're like, I want to be, and it's very formal. That's not going to work at a party, right? I mean, you're standing there with your, well, maybe you're not 21. I may or may not have drank before I was 21. But you're standing there and you're having conversation. It's got to be conversational. So I'm a comedian, and I talk to them about I'm a comedian, and I have a social media following, and I do sketch comedy videos. Okay, or I'm a college professor, I teach personal branding, and I teach social media marketing. I've been doing it for 7 years. So I'm giving them real life examples. And I'm giving them why should they care about what it is I do. So you can see, if I were to tell you this, hopefully at a party, right? That you may say, oh my gosh, my cousin's a comedian, or my cousin's he does things with Second City, or whatever. My aunt is funny, or I'm funny, or how do I incorporate laughter in my life? Okay, so then opportunities. I need to introduce you to them. They're here, why don't you come meet them? Okay, so then people are already telling your elevator pitch to someone else, and they remember what you told them. Okay? So that is the elevator pitch, where opportunities that you didn't necessarily expect come at you. Because if you just say what your position is, then they have nowhere to go. They don't know what your hopes and dreams are, right? So don't lead with your position, lead with your vision. Okay, lead with your vision. And so when I say it overshadows everything, I can use this throughout everything that I do. If I see something that's really funny, I can post it, and I'm still staying within my brand because I'm a comedian. Or if I see something academic in nature, I can share that because it's still in line with my brand. Okay? What happens if I post 20 jokes on social media? Right? People are going to think of me as that I'm funny, or that I'm a comedian, or I like to laugh. So if you're very consistent, which this is the heart of it, being very consistent in your messaging, then people remember you for something very specific. That's like a crash course in elevator pitch, which I love elevator pitch. Also, because you guys are students, there is a hashtag. Can I erase this, or should I just leave it? Do you mind if I just end up writing everywhere? Is that here? I don't know
You
if
can even use that one over there. But you might have to really remove the table.
This is what happens in the classroom. I end up writing everywhere, and it's craziness. And then the next class is coming in, and I'm like, there's a hashtag right now called, there's 2 hashtags. Student voices and students of LinkedIn. Does anyone know what these hashtags are? This is, no, okay, so I'm breaking the story. I'm a spoiler alert, or whatever you guys say. Student voices, students of LinkedIn. So I'm gonna encourage you guys to go look up those 2 hashtags. Because what you will find when you do this is that there is a lot of college students that are branding themselves. And there are people who are into personal branding, such as myself, that use this hashtag because we're talking directly to students. So there's a movement, I want to say right now, of college students that are branding themselves, and they're getting these amazing positions because of it. They're making connections, and that's why I say the sweet spot. You can make connections, you can brand yourself, and you can do a lot of different things. So those 2 hashtags, look it up. And then I would say, think about how you spend your time when you are not getting paid and you've taken a nap, you're not hungry. Okay, like how do you spend your time? And think about that, because if you spend your time like watching game tape or film tape or something like that, maybe you want to brand yourself as being a strategic thinker. So people say, oh, what do you do? And you're like, oh, you know, I am a strategic thinker, or I'm very organized, because you may not know what it is you want to do, okay? But you know about yourself. I'm well read. I've read I've listened to a lot of podcasts, okay? And then you talk about why. Why should they care that you do this? Okay, so then you think about getting on your big girl, big boy pants, right? And you start making observations. And this is what will have people gravitating towards you if you work this the right way. Okay, all right, I got that out. I was like, I have to get this out right now. But I don't want to dump on you this subject that I know so well with everything. But one last thing I want to tell you before I say, please ask me a lot of questions. I know a lot about social media marketing. So if you guys have any questions and I'm a content creator. So I post on all social media platforms pretty much every day. And I love Instagram. I think it's my jam. I love stories. I post stories every day. But I would say full tilt towards Instagram and LinkedIn right now. Everybody should be full tilt towards Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn before Instagram, for sure. I feel like Twitter is kind of like the dark overlord of social media. It's like people are so angry on it, but it has its uses, right? It definitely, you can get a voice on there and people can find you. I always say, like, think of Twitter like going to a party. So you go to the party, if somebody tweets something out and you decide to comment, think of it like you've come to their house for a party. And if you've ever had a party and somebody comes and eats all the chicken and drinks all your liquor, that sucks, right? You're like, come on, I don't want them at my party. I'm not going to invite them again. But if they come and they are saying, yeah, she's right, isn't this a great house? And this is amazing, then I'm going to invite you again to the party. I want you at my party because you make me feel good. So think of it like that. And I think social media in general is like that. It's like a conversation that should happen. Bless you.
Thank you.
I actually moderated a panel a week ago for the National Black MBA Association. And I was sitting next to someone who worked with the CIA. She was like high up with the CIA. And the swag they gave out was webcam covers. This is a total side note to everything I'm talking about, but
Wow.
webcam covers to put over your cell phone and over your monitor. And she handed it to me and she's like, because, you know, we're always watching. I was like, okay, I won't dance naked in front of my computer anymore. Oh gosh, it's like craziness. Can I have a couple more?
Right. For every device.
For everything, and maybe like my friends, my husband, I don't know. So, questions, you guys, ask me anything. I'm really an open book. Yes.
Not a question so much as just thank you for coming today to demystify branding. I'm in a role as an advisor here in the College of Business, where it's really made me think about how I project myself on social media, and ways that I can control the narrative, as you said. And I think all of us, like, we get feedback from people and we don't really even realize it's feedback, you know? Because I give feedback to students all the time about themselves. But from time to time people will say, they'll have an observation about me or whatever, and if we think about it in the broader context of the narrative and we tweak it, as you mentioned, I forget some of the things that you said, like if somebody says you do this and you can translate it to, oh, this is how I want to be viewed.
Yes.
It helps.
It helps.
And you never know where especially at the age of most of the people in this room, they're trying to figure out what that next step is and what that vision is. But maybe they don't realize that they can control
you are in control. Like that's the thing. That's why it's called personal brand, because you are in control of your brand. And so whatever you want to do, you can do it. Like whatever. Yes.
I don't remember where I heard it from, but I remember hearing that like if you can't like write your idea on the back of my business card, then like you need to like refocus your vision and like rework it. And then I'm also whenever me and my dad start talking, we'll like talk about he like says you have to have gravity, you have to have presence. Then you need to like project yourself and hold yourself and carry yourself like that. And that's like it's important to have people perceive you. Everything.
How you're perceived, right? So like how you dress, how you talk, everything goes into your brand. So if I were to say Mark Cuban, you know Mark Cuban, right? But do you know any company that he has started or owned? Right? But he's branded himself as a savvy business person. So people go to him with opportunities about business. We don't even know if he's bankrupted all of these companies. We have no idea, but his brand is so strong that he can do that. Or Steve Jobs, you know, those little mock turtlenecks he used to wear all the time. It was by design, right? It was all about his brand. He was doing personal branding way before we even knew it was a thing. Or there's a reason why Michael Jordan still sells tons of tennis shoes, or high tops. He still sells Air Jordans. He's still making $20 million a year selling Air Jordans, and he hasn't played basketball in I don't know how long. So back in the day, I remember the Bulls years. But.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think about a personal website and showing like your portfolio and what you can do?
Absolutely. Do it. Buyyourname.com. So I have audreyboyle.com. I go to GoDaddy, type it in, and buy it. If you don't have the $14, don't type it in to GoDaddy search, because I've found that if you type the name in for some reason, if you go back a week later when you didn't have the money, that it'll be gone. So people will know, like, I think GoDaddy buys website. I mean, I don't know. This is all speculation, but go and spend the $14 a year and buyyourname.com. And it's really nice to say, hey, why don't you check me out online? So I say, people say, oh, how can we find you? And I'm like, just Google Audrey Boyle. You know, that's what I want for you guys. And not say, oh, it's at something or other. That's too complicated. We don't have that kind of capacity in our brains, you know, too much information's coming at us. McDonald's. Do you remember? Maybe you don't remember. Remember they had these like the Hamburglar, Ronald McDonald. One of those little like fun characters Saturday morning. So Grimace. I remember Grimace. I'm like, that was awesome. And if you think about it, they lost all those characters, like, I don't know how long ago, 10, 15 years ago. They just stopped, and they just became the Golden Arches. And then our impression of McDonald's changed. They became like the man, we're like all down on their food, because they lost that whimsical nature that was so great about McDonald's. It just went away. And that's what personal branding is all about, is like, we want like something to attach to a logo. We don't want to just see a logo anymore. We want to see something else. We want to see authenticity. We want to see whimsical. We want to see fun. So that is, I mean, personal. So also, if you work for a company, if you brand yourself, maybe you want to be a manager, or maybe you want to go into different positions within that company, or you want to go work for another company. So you have to tell people what you really want to happen. And you have to educate them on what you're uniquely qualified to do. So it's not bragging or boastful to tell people that you're really good at doing something if you're good at doing it, right? You're not, and I think another misconception is that people think if I work really hard, people will notice that I'm working really hard. And we don't notice that that person's working really hard. Or that your manager is going to go and actually be your advocate. So they're going to be the ones who are going to be talking you up, and that's why you're going to get promoted. And so if you've ever been in a situation where you're like, she doesn't or he doesn't deserve that job. How did they get that job? They don't do anything here at work, which happened to me a lot. You go, oh, okay, wait, it's because they were in there branding themselves, strategically branding themselves, so that they knew who he or she was, and that's why they got that job or they got promoted. So yes, think about what you want to be known for. And it can change. You can go to a party and say one thing and go, it doesn't matter. But you just want to stick one thing in their mind so that they remember you. I could go on and on. It's just crazy. It's like I could throw up on you right now with information on this. But I want to know, like, do you have any questions?
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have any top not to do things, like don't do this as you brand yourself, or just cautionary tales?
Yeah. Did you learn from something that you did that
To
didn't go right?
not do anything, I think, is worse than to do
Trying
anything
something.
at all. So I say you use more gas at takeoff than you do during the entire flight. So it's like just do it, just go for it. So say you post something, one thing, that's that one thing that everybody knows. But if you post 10 things, then they have a few things to choose from as to who you are. So not doing anything is worse.
So you talked about your vision and how you always wanted to be a comedian. Is there anything beyond this that you, or do you want to expand it to a different level? You said you use Instagram a lot and YouTube, so do you want to expand that, or I don't know, I guess.
Oh, yes, okay, so
Your
what's my
vision-
vision?
your
And you're
vision
like,
going
what's the
forward,
big?
yeah.
I do a lot of research when it comes to comedy and how it affects our lives. And there's a reason why comedians are sought after. It's because we all want to laugh. People want to gravitate towards people that are funny. And so there's a lot when it comes to work culture that you can inject fun and humor in the work-life culture. So my ultimate goal, right now I'm packaging for a TV show, which is, next year. But my ultimate goal is really try to put that out there as far as information, because comedians are very vulnerable. To tell jokes is a very vulnerable thing to do. And I don't think that we consider it enough. And there's a lot of comedians that are suicidal or committed suicide or have drug problems and things like that. And what are the resources for them so that they are taken seriously in the workplace? Because sometimes if they're really funny, it's like, oh, I'm not going to be taken seriously. Those are the people that you should be promoting, because you want to have in the room when you have complex negotiations and situations. So, the short story is, you know who Brene Brown is?
Yes.
So, no. But I always say I want to be the Black Brene Brown. Instead of fear and shame and vulnerability, I want to talk about comedy. It's like the short version of my vision. But I didn't know I always wanted to be a comedian. That's definitely not what I knew. I looked back over my career and I realized what was the main thing that why I got these jobs and why I was in these positions was because I was always making jokes. So then I thought, well, okay, I'll just, keep going and doing what I love doing already. And so when I was challenging you guys, what do you do? How do you spend your time? I write jokes, when I have nothing else going on. And or watch the Hallmark Channel. But yes, I write a lot of jokes. Any other questions? I'm an open book. Yeah?
Was it hard, changing your brand, after you've been working so long, Home Depot and stuff, and then all of a sudden going into, teaching comedy?
It's really hard. I'm not saying that it's easy at all. There's, that saying that when one door closes, another door opens or whatever, but I would say the hallway is a bitch. And you're in the hallway all the time. It's dark, it's cold, it's awful, right? So I had to change the narrative about me, because everybody kept saying oh, why don't you go back into sales? You were so good at it. I was like, but I didn't like it. You know, so I had to change all of that and change everyone around me and what they thought of me. I mean, when I did my surveys, a lot of people didn't even know I was a college professor, and I'd been a professor for 3 years, and they had no idea. So I'm like, okay, wait, I need to change what's going on here.
I had a question about the platforms, and you said if you're not on LinkedIn, you really need. So in terms of like your outlook and vision, where do you see what you're presenting now? Where do you see that going with LinkedIn, with regard to LinkedIn? The personal branding and using that platform.
The reason why I say LinkedIn is because the organic growth on LinkedIn is amazing. So there's 600 million people on LinkedIn for all my marketing guys. So 600 million active users on LinkedIn. I think there's 1,000 new people that subscribe or get profiles every minute.
Wow.
Right? But there's 252 million in the US, but there's only 1 million active posters. So LinkedIn is just a bunch of creepers. Everybody gets on LinkedIn, but we don't do anything. We just look at everybody else's stuff. So if you post on LinkedIn, all of your connections see your content. If you like or you comment, they see your likes and comments, which is not the same on any other platform. And everybody else is like, you know, wildly taking pictures and throwing content wildly on all the other platforms. But LinkedIn, everybody's very careful about what they do, which is amazing. So you can really put it out there and brand yourself accordingly. And then whatever is out there on the other platforms, if you're putting stuff out on LinkedIn, that's what seems to be the professional one. So
It helps though you put it in that context, because again, I think all the students need to hear concerning how they can develop their own personal brand using that platform.
yes, nobody knows who you are until you tell them, and you can craft whatever narrative you want. Who has a LinkedIn profile?
Leonel pushes it.
Yay!
Yes. I will say one of the things I did for my class I teach is I had a blog, and then I shared that on my LinkedIn. And the amount, I'm trying to think if anyone was in that class that we did that in. Were you were in that class? Yeah. And so then they started getting professionals commenting on their blog posts on their LinkedIn, and that was just another organic way for it to grow. I mean, they hated the blogs. They hated the blogs. but after a while, I started to see that the blogs, the grammar was improving. You know, they were very, aware of what they were typing and what they were putting out there because people were commenting.
Yes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then you think like you catch some steam.
Yeah.
I was saying Facebook, like that for a younger generation, like all us old people are on Facebook.
Yep.
So you walk out of class and you learned about, I don't know, I was just telling you 3 things that are myths when it comes to personal branding. If you were to say, hey, just did a really great lunch and learn on personal branding, here's 3 personal branding myths. Okay, you post that out there, and the younger generation, like us older people, are like, "Oh my God, they're learning something!" And we just freak out, right? Because you never post. Generally, younger generation do not post because we're creepers. As older people are like, "Oh, well, you were at a party last weekend? Like, how'd it go?" You don't want to hear that, right? So you just tend to stay to Snapchat, and I always say, like, get off Snapchat because I don't think Snapchat's going the distance.
I know we've talked about branding and social media and doing that, but was it hard for you to rebrand yourself with people that already knew you? Like they knew you were a professor and now you're trying to change, like, was it just a process to kind of?
I had a lot of people say, what are you doing? Like a lot of relatives, a lot of friends that were like, don't do this. It's a really bad career move for you to put this humor into everything you're doing. And I remember listening to them. So like one of my quotes I say now is, don't let anyone else's fears interrupt your career.
Yeah.
Because they're heaping their fear on you. And then you think, okay, maybe I should do things differently. But they don't even know. Like there's no handbook. Somebody can't say, this is what you need to do to be successful. And if you're authentic and you're real, then that's all anybody really cares about, right? So I remember I teach for a Forbes business school, and I remember going to an event, and everybody was just kind of standing around and looking awkward, and I was like, look, I'm a comedian, I can't do this. I don't know what it was. It was like burst out of me. I think because there was some cocktails there. It's kind of one of those things, and I just realized that everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is unique. There's something different, because it was something different to talk about. And I realized at that point that I just need to be myself all the time. Because we spot when people are not being real, right?